Welcome everyone to the Grace Sun, and today I'm very excited to share with you a new series we're going to be starting on the channel called Marvel or Medieval, where we are going to be looking at some iconic Marvel characters and sticking them in a historical medieval setting with the tools and weapons that they have, and see how these would stack up in a medieval setting. Now we will be limiting this to the MCU since the comic books go over a drastic area, and also because the MCU, it's easier to see how these weapons and tools are proportional to the human body. Our first contender is the God of Thunder himself, Thor, but more specifically, his mighty hammer, Mjolnir. So, Mjolnir, Thor's mighty hammer that gives him the ability to fly, increased human strength, and also gives him the ability to use lightning. But for this historical medieval setting, we're going to remove these powers so that Mjolnir is just a base hammer. This includes the worthiness aspect.
You are unworthy of these realms.
So, with these powers removed, is Mjolnir a practical weapon in a medieval setting? Well, possibly. The first thing we need to do is know the measurements of Mjolnir. And to do this, I looked up Chris Hemsworth, who is the actor for Thor. And then from there, I found a picture with both Thor and Mjolnir in frame. From there, I added a hammer, and then I started stacking hammers next to him to get my rough measurements. Now, my math was not perfect, but the rough statistics I got was that Mjolnir in total length is 17 inches, the handle being 10, and the face of the hammer being 7, and the length of the hammer head is 9 inches. Now, some hammers may vary in length, but overall this is a fairly good representation of the hammer that we can use for the needs we have. So now that we have our measurements of Mjolnir, let's look to history to see if there's any real-world representations or examples that he could resemble. The first thing you might think of is a mace, but Mjolnir and a mace vary pretty drastically. For one, a mace is far longer than Mjolnir. Also, a mace has several points of contact, where Mjolnir mainly has two, the front and back. So, we're not going to look at a mace. Moreover, we are going to look at a war hammer. Now, Mjolnir and a war hammer are both war hammers. But is that enough for Mjolnir to be practical? Well, back to our measurements. A war hammer's measurements, compared to Mjolnir's, are fairly different. Warhammer is longer than Mjolnir, 20 inches, and they could be longer. They're usually 20 to 25 inches. And also, the head length is 5. And also, you will notice that the head on this Warhammer is drastically smaller than Mjolnir. So a side-by-side would look like this. And another defining fact between these two is the pick on the back of the Warhammer, which was used to get through weaker places in armor. Also very similar to the war mace, the handle on the war hammer is also far longer than Mjolnir's. Another big difference is the head of a war hammer has teeth on it to grip onto armor, where Mjolnir's face is completely flat, so it'll slide off of the armor. So Mjolnir doesn't stack up very well against these real-world examples because of that drastically short handle. Mjolnir would be so unwieldy. Most of the weight would be on the head, and it would just be very difficult to wield. Also, Mjolnir's head being so big, you lose a lot of that energy when you hit. Since you're not concentrating all the energy into one defined point, it's over a surface area. Also, Mjolnir does not have those teeth on the warhammer like we talked about, so the hammer will just slide off, again, not transferring that energy in each swing. So Mjolnir in a historical setting is a complete failure. You would probably be better off with finding a log or a stick to try and protect yourself rather than use Mjolnir. But here at Marvel or Medieval, we're not just going to condemn weapons that aren't very good and wouldn't work. We're going to see how we can fix them. So how can we fix Mjolnir? Well, the first thing I would say is to lengthen that handle. If we give it a longer handle, you can get more energy in each swing because of the longer lever. Also, the second thing I would do is drastically cut that head down. Make the head so much smaller, you reduce a lot of that weight, and then you also are concentrating most of that energy into a single point of contact, which makes it far more practical and effective. Another thing we could do is add those teeth to the head, which would make it catch on armor if you were against someone in armor, but it would also help against an unarmored opponent. So with our new Mjolnir, we get statistics like this. We get an 18-inch handle, a 3-inch head, and the same 9-inch length on the top of the head. And compared to our original Mjolnir, this is completely different, and it resembles a war hammer far more than the last one. But it doesn't look as good as it would in the movies compared to the other Mjolnir. But those are just my opinions on how we could possibly fix Mjolnir. Let me know what you think we could do to fix Mjolnir, or anything we could add or take away to make it more effective and practical in medieval setting in Midgard down below. Also, let me know on what you want to see next, which Marvel characters, weapons, or tools. Thank you guys very much for watching The Grey Sun, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Marvel or Medieval. I will see you in the next video.